All right. These topics have been hitting today. This topic's been hitting today. And next on our list, let's see. I'm about to hit a little bit of my brew. Is about Russia possibly trying to influence the United States and basically trying to influence our elections. They pretty much said that they already influenced it in 2022 and possibly 2020, and they coming back for vengeance. You know, they coming back for what is it? Round two, fight. You know what I'm saying, and everything like that. So let's take a look at this, see what's going on with that. And you could get with this, and you could get with that. And you could get with this, and you could get with that. And you could get with this, and you could get with that. And you could get with... See, that's some Kappa shoulders. So I'm not a Kappa, but my family Kappas, you know what I'm saying? So I still inherited the shoulders, you know what I'm saying? Y'all don't know about that. Y'all don't know about them Kappa shoulders with the canes? Yeah, y'all don't know about that. Y'all don't know about that. And definitely let me know in the comments if you do know about that. Because that means I already mess with you. And that means you probably mess with me too. Kappa people. Shout out to Rictavius. Shout out to Ricky. Real Kappas. Real Kappas. Real Steppers. You feel me? Real Steppers. Y'all don't know about that. Now let's see. Let's break it down. Now, Russia tried to influence U.S. elections in 2022 and will do it again, the nation's top intel agency says. There's our boy Vladimir Putin. He's looking kind of down because he thought this war with Ukraine would be over in a month or two, and it's been going very hard and bankrupting his entire country. And he's probably wondering why he even did this. The only reason he's pretty much doing it at this point is just because of his ego. And yeah, I would be looking like that too if I failed my people. If I failed my people, caused them to lose tons of lives, ruined our economy. Boy, I'm on you, boy. Boy, I'm on you, bro. Like, he's ugly. Now you got to go down in history with this on your belt. The failed, you know what I'm saying? The failed attack of Ukraine. Because I feel like even if Russia at this point, let's say they did overtake Ukraine, they probably took so many economical hits that it just wasn't worth it. Is Ukraine really worth all of that? Maybe to Russia. But is it worth going bankrupt? Having the rest of the world pretty much outlaw you, except for China. China's cool with you. Now let's see what's going on. Let's see what's going on here. Now it says Russia conducted malign influence operations in the 2022 U.S. midterm elections and is using increasingly clandestine means to penetrate the Western information environment. The U.S. intelligence community said in a new report Wednesday. Basically, they're going to try to manipulate the votes. I would assume that they would want to manipulate it so that Trump would win. Because as you guys know, Trump gets along with Russia quite well. And I'm sure he would much rather work with somebody who's going to work with him than somebody who's not. And as we know, Joe Biden just kind of goes to sleep at all these meetings. So he's a pretty difficult guy to work with, you know. Because you got to wake him up every like 5 seconds. Like, hey, he's like, foreign policy. Y'all remember when he fell off that bike? Let me stop. Let's get back to it now. Moscow will also work to strengthen ties to Americans in media and politics as it works to carry out future influence operations. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence said in the latest edition of its annual assessment of worldwide threats to U.S. national security. So what I'm getting from that is this doesn't necessarily mean straight election fraud. It means that essentially they'll try to manipulate the United States people or change the way that we think through propaganda. You know what I'm saying? You get a few Russian people to come, you know, say a few things to media, maybe push a few agendas and everything like that. The media comes, they hop on your CNN, your CNBC, all of that. They push it out to the people. The people think differently, and then that makes them vote differently. You know what I'm saying? And that's a good way that Russia would possibly go against it. And that seems like U.S. intelligence seems to think that's what they plan on doing. Now it says the 2023 report came 4 months after most recent midterm elections, where concerns about Russian influence effort were more muted in comparison with the two previous presidential election cycles in 2016 and 2020. I do think this is kind of interesting there too, because I really didn't hear too much about election tampering from the Russians in the in the midterm elections in 2022 and everything like that. But I heard a ton in 2016 and 2020, especially, you know what I'm saying, and everything like that. So it's crazy to think that they be manipulating a lot of our elections. I wonder how much also this happens like around the world where like we don't really know it, but countries are possibly paying off the media or paying somebody to push a certain type of agenda so that possibly somebody else could get elected, or influencing the civilians of a certain country to kind of feel a certain type of way. It's almost like it's like a form of social warfare is what I would call it. Propaganda, social warfare. If you can make a country hate their president, then those are people that won't fight for their president, at least not as hard. There's a country that won't work as hard for them. So it's almost kind of like how China is kind of using TikTok to ruin the U.S.'s youth and make them kind of stupid so they're not as hard to deal with in the future, which is actually working. But you know what I'm saying? I don't know. Should I coin the term? I'm sure our social studies teachers and everything like that already have a term for it. But for now, I'm going to go with the term of social warfare. Propaganda, even, you could call it. Now, it says the intelligence community found that Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered a influence campaign in the 2016 election with a clear preference for then candidate Donald Trump, who would go on to win that race. So this gets real sticky. It's like, ooh, how much can I trust my vote? Everything like that, which has only really started to come around within the last 10 years where people are like, whoa, people are talking about election fraud. Does my vote actually not like matter? Like, oh, Russians are influencing the U.S. election. Like, does my vote not matter? Is my vote weaker and everything like that? Trump won. Putin wanted him there. And we saw after that, they like best friends. They as best friends as two nations that I wouldn't say hate each other, but don't get along can be. So, I mean, call it what you want, but it doesn't look, it's a coincidence, I would say. It's an interesting coincidence, I would say. Now, yeah, my nose is itchy, y'all. Like, jeez. Okay. Trump, who during this campaign had called on Russia to find his then rival Hillary Clinton's emails, later questioned whether Russia interfered in the 2016 election. During a meeting with Putin in 2018, Trump indicated that he believed the Russian leader's claim that the Kremlin did not meddle into the 2016 race, essentially siding with Putin's stance over his own intelligence community's assessment. Trump later backtracked on those remarks. This is all bad looks, you know what I'm saying? Shouldn't we should see this coming though, as far as national security? You should see this coming, but you already know we're a large power. Russia's a large power. So you never know how hard it could be to defend against things like this, because you don't necessarily see it coming. Now, it said ahead of last November's midterms, researchers reportedly identified Russian efforts to interfere by using social media accounts, posing as okay, so this is maybe how some of this went down. Posing as Americans to stoke partisan anger and undermine trust in the electoral process, which I think either way it goes, trust is kind of lost, because even just hearing this news, whether it's true or not, in the back of everyone's head is, well, it could be true. And if it is true, then that means the voting process is flawed, which is what our democracy is completely built on, Now, the FBI and the Department of Justice's cybersecurity agency had warned ahead of midterms that foreign actors were likely to try and spread disinformation before and after Election Day. The office, which oversees the nation's 18 intelligence agencies, added that the latest warning about Russian election meddling was starker and more certain than in its previous report. Wow, my voice kind of cracked there, huh? For instance, the office determined that Russia almost certainly sees U.S. elections as opportunities to malign influence and influence its foreign policy goals. Moscow will also probably try to cultivate relationships with U.S. figures in politics and the media in hopes of developing vectors for future influence operations. In the 2023 edition, the agency dropped the words almost certainly and probably from its assessment. So they pretty much went out and said this is law. This is fact that they are meddling. Now it says the report added Russia's influence actors have adapted their efforts to increasingly hide their hand. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to be outwards. Like, it's going to be things like like they said, social media posts, social media accounts that look like Americans that are pushing agendas when really it's, a bunch of Russians making tons of accounts and just pushing out that agenda, which is kind of scary when you think about it. Because if the government's involved, think of how many accounts they could have thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of accounts making posts that make people think differently about the election than they would normally think. You know, a vast ecosystem of Russian proxy websites, individuals, and organizations that appear to be independent news sources. Though creating original content or seizing disclosure, these activities can include disseminating false content, like making false posts, and amplifying information perceived as beneficial to Russian influence efforts or conspiracy theories. Now, it says Russia's already tense relationships with the U.S. We already know that's going on. Russia, China, they hate us over here. You already know. Have been hugely strained by the country's invasion of Ukraine. The intelligence community warned in its threat assessment that Russia, which holds the world's largest stockpile of nuclear weapons, is continuing to develop long-range nuclear-capable missiles, which no one is trying to hear about these long-range capable missiles, and everything like that. Obviously, they can't pull them out. They're dealing with this whole Ukraine thing. They definitely don't want to start fights elsewhere while we still got this whole situation going on. Like, they while they're fighting with Ukraine, they don't also want to be fighting with Great Britain, the United States, all of our allied powers. And even though China may help them out in the mix, it's just not a good it's not a good look. They thought they were going to take over Ukraine in a clean sweep, and it wasn't a clean sweep at all. If anything, it was a terrible sweep. Now their country's like in debt. I'm not sure if they're necessarily in debt, but they spent way too much money that they could. You know what I'm saying? The Russian dollar, or whatever you call it. What is the Russian dollar called? We're on live. We're on live. Russian currency. The ruble. Let's see what it's called. To USD. Wow, oh my gosh. The Russian coin has gotten destroyed. Oh yeah. Compared to the dollar. One Russian ruble is 0.013 of the, so it doesn't really have anything on the United States dollar. But especially after this war, they just fought a war, Now it says they hold the, long-range capable missiles. So I want to know what you guys think about this. Like, what do you guys think? How do you guys think about the elections now that we have Trump saying so much about voter election fraud and everything like this? Now the U.S. intelligence is saying, yes, Russia had a part to play in influencing the votes, not necessarily stealing votes or anything like that, but that they're all in our social media, they're all in our news networks and that like that, manipulating and trying to play a narrative that works for them and not necessarily for the United States of America, and we could be doing the same to other countries too. You never know. But I want to know what you guys think about this and everything like that. I think it's very interesting to know that, other countries are doing this. And this is why you can't listen to all media. This is why you got to take media really with a grain of salt. You got to look at the story, see what's going on, take a step back, think for yourself. And then once you've sat and had, a nice cup of hot tea by yourself, then you can make a decision on how you really feel about the subject and everything like that. Yeah. But yeah, guys, definitely like, comment, subscribe if you enjoy these videos, these topics and everything like that. We're going to be going live at least 4 or 5 days a week and everything like that.